Today, I wanted to talk about more of the major scale, getting into our next position 2, diving into its relevance to the CAGED system, and some little tips and tricks that I like to use with this particular position, and even some of 1. So let's dive straight into it. Last time we were in the key of G major, and we learned position 1. Today, we want to dive into position 2, similar to our talk on the pentatonic minor, where whenever you're sliding into some of the new positions, until you get to the point where you've got another root note, which since we're in G, that next root note is going to be up there on the 10th fret of your A string. So we got a little ways to go. We're going to have to utilize the root note from position 1 to get into it. So let's talk about that position, and then we'll move forward with what we can do with it. Position number 2, stealing the root note from the 3rd fret there on that low E string. That's going to be our first note. Then we're going to slide up to the 5th fret of the low E string. And once again, in position 1, I like to designate fingers for each fret, so I'm not constantly shifting and losing my spot here. So we've got the middle finger on the 5th fret of the low E string. Pinky is then going to the 7th fret of the low E string. Next string, middle finger's on the 5th fret of the A string. Oh, I missed one. So we had the 5th fret and the 7th fret, and then the pinky slide up. There it is, the 8th fret of the low E string. Then index finger on the 5th fret of the A string. There it is, there's the 5th. Ring finger is going to go to the 7th fret of the A string. And then we're going to have to come back on the 4th fret of the D string, using the index finger for that. Middle finger on the 5th fret of the D string. Okay, ring finger on the 7th fret of the D string. Groovy. And then we are on the G string. That's going to be the 4th fret of the G string with the index finger. Middle finger is on the 5th fret of the G string. Pinky of the 7th fret. Moving to the B string, index on the 5th. Ring finger on the 7th next. And then pinky on the 8th fret. Now technically, this is my last root note. So technically, it stops there, but if we want to continue going, and we should go to the high E string, 5th fret, and then 7th fret, and then the 8th fret. So all together, that is position 2. Now, with position 2, now that we've got this covered, a few things I want to talk about here. The very first thing we should touch base on is how this relates to the CAGED system, because each position, specifically when in regards to the major scale, is related to one of those CAGED chords. And CAGED, if you don't know already, the CAGED system is just a method of navigating the fretboard, finding all of the different major chord shapes. It's called CAGED because let's say we took a C, there's the C shape, the C in CAGED, and then the A in CAGED, and then the G shape. Oh, there it is. The G in CAGED, and then the E shape, and then the D shape. And then we're back at the C shape. But it's just a way for, right? Oh, I hate that shape so much. C-A-G-E-D. Every major chord has that shape. Again, the main reasoning for it is just to help visualize those root notes are, where those triads are. Some people, I think, give it a little more flowers than it's due. I just think of it as a really nice outline. It helps kind of where you're at, track, then you can go from there. Not a solo tool, in my opinion, to navigate the entirety of the fretboard, but it is useful nonetheless. So we learned position 1. Position 1 was since we're in G shape, we learned position 1 of the major scale, which was the E shape, G, E. So the next one should be the D shape. And indeed it is. That major scale shape, D shape, is utilizing this root note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. That note, and then we have our D shape over the top, right? which means that pinky there, that's the 8th fret of the B string, that's the other root note. Why is this useful? Well, there's a few reasons why this is useful. The very first thing, if you've seen anybody talking about using octaves, myself included, maybe you were watching my video, a lot of people would use that using octaves to help travel the fretboard. And those are the 3 octaves that most people choose to focus on, is position 1 and position 2, the major scale. And it's because you've got a root note here. That's the 3rd fret of the low E. That's what's telling us it's in G. We have the 5th fret of the D string. That's also G. And then we have the 8th fret of the B string. So all those G notes right there. And the nice part is they're close enough together that you don't have to go hunting for them. There's clearly others on the fretboard, but they're a little bit further away. There's one there. He's pretty good in that 3rd fret. And then, of course, your open G string, right? So all those different root notes. And those are basically, think of them as like on a road. It shows you markers kind of in relation to everything. But I digress. Where I'm going with this is that whole idea of using octaves to travel the fretboard is nice. I think there's an even better way, at least in regards to position 1 and position 2 of the major scale. Instead of choosing, I'm going to play in position 1, which is really nice and kind of ergonomic in that each finger has its own fret. What I really like to do, and I know a lot of other players, specifically some speedier players, like to combine position 1 and position 2. And to do that, we're basically going to playing, instead of tightly in this box, we're doing what's called the 3-note per string method, okay? That's essentially, instead of that only has 2, there's 3 notes on that one, 3 on that, 2. We're going to do for every single string from this octave to this octave, play 3 notes on every string. It's much more elegant of a solution to start traveling a little more horizontally than straight vertically. So, in order to do that, it's going to look like this. We're going to start on that root note on the 3rd fret of the low E. Our 3 notes then are going to be the 3rd fret to the 5th fret. I use my middle finger for this stretch because then I need my pinky on the 7th fret. So 3, 5, 7. We're going to do the exact same thing on the A string. 3, 5, 7. Okay, a little more condensed here. On the D string, it's the 4th fret, 5th fret, and 7th fret. Same thing on the G string. And then on the B string, it's the 5th fret, the 7th fret, and the 8th fret. All together, much more elegant. Then that little bit of a stretch there at the very beginning, which the more you practice that, the better you'll get. I don't have the biggest hands in the world, but it can do it, so you can do it too. Take your time on that, getting into some of those wider stretches. A few different exercises you can do to kind of warm up for that sort of stuff. I think once you've done it enough, it won't be much of an issue, but if you're not accustomed to a big stretch like that, at the very beginning, you feel a little bit of tension in that index finger there from that big stretch. Make sure your hand placement is correct, you're hitting it with the tips of your fingers, and you're not doing that goofy thing that I see people do with their wrists, where you're trying to like a hot dog, like a hamburger. Give your wrist that space so you can get that stretch in there. But I think that's that shape a million different ways. Shape is, if I'm going into a major scale, a different scale, but it's utilizing the same shape, a mode, even I'm going to go for first, always. Shape. Comfortable, I feel like you get a lot more distance out of it. And instead of having to be like around, where on position 1 specifically, this part right here on the B and the G string is a little awkward because it's all pinky, which is great if you're working with your pinky and trying to get it really good. It's a great spot to really practice. But that one out, pattern for like check, great, alternate picking, down, up, because since there's 3 notes, it's an odd number, so down, and then it flip-flops up. There's definitely a few more things I want to touch on. I'm just trying to decide if I want to touch on them. I'll touch on one thing, for sure. The thing that's really nice about this 3-note per string pattern is, if you recall my arpeggio lesson, this is kind of a lot of those arpeggios will stem from. A lot of them will come from that CAGED system, sort of like E-shape, that idea. There's that arpeggio thing, right? E-shape, I don't really approach that one like that. D-shape, I don't really approach it like that. But what I do is like to use is where I'm skipping 1, the 3rd, the 5th, and then we continue up, grab that root note. That's just finding literally the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's 1, 3, 5, and you could get all the way up there. Let's say you're playing jazz and you want a major 7, you just, on that root note, you grab the 7 as well and try to get them all in there. But hopefully that helps you guys kind of a little bit. Last thing I wanted to touch on for sure before I forget, as you're learning these shapes, just be aware you're kind of birds with one stone here. Or if you're a Trailer Park Boys fan, what is it? 2 birds while getting stoned, I think. I love Trailer Park Boys. 2 things at once here, because if you learn this in G major, right, you also have learned E minor because of our relative minors, which if you saw that video, awesome. If not, it's on our YouTube. Definitely go check that one out. And I go a half step back and then a whole step. I'm in G, my root, my 7th, my 6th. That's the 6th note of G major. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is an E. Whatever the 6th note is in your major scale, that is its relative minor. So if I were to be playing in E minor and I know this particular shape, I just need to make sure that I start with the E note and then follow my major scale shape. And that's just me playing G major. It's the exact same shape, the exact same notes. It's just which note I'm putting the inflection upon. Am I starting with the 1 here? 1. Am I starting with G or am I starting with the E note? Because if I start with the E note, or I'm starting with G, exact same notes. So a really cool thing, if you want to feel like you did a little bit extra today, and be like, man, I learned both of those. This is why the major scale is so indeed important, because this particular scale shape, if you think about it in a little bit different context, and you think about it as, I'm using the G major shape, but I'm playing the 1 as E, this shape all across the fretboard is also the minor shape. It's also the Dorian shape, the Phrygian shape. It's also the Aeolian shape, which is also your minor. Also the Mixolydian. It's also the Locrian. This shape is the most important shape that there is, because the only thing that changes is that sort of inflection, that sort of idea of, well, where am I starting this? Because if I know where I'm starting this, I don't even have to think about it anymore, because major scale is so ingrained in me at this point, and it's why at the music schools that I've taught at, that is what everybody does for hours, hours, and hours every day, because you're ingraining that into yourself. So if you haven't already learned all of this stuff about your major scale, this is the swift kick in the butt to get started on it, because it is the most important thing. As far as practice is concerned, learning, going up is totally okay. Position 2, right? And coming back down, all good in the neighborhood. Same with the 3 note per string. See why the 3 note per string is so much better? There's like hardly at all. And it's so much, there's a very clear way to get all 3 octaves in there. It's super nice. Movement. But definitely down is fine when you're learning it. Once you've got that pattern, kind of start adding some little tips and tricks. Do 3 notes at a time. 1, 2, 3. Start out combos. 1, 2, 3. Start on the next note. 1, 2, 3. Right? Do 4 notes at the time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent for both your right hand and your left hand and your noggin. Good practice idea to keep yourself organized mentally, which I am clearly not practiced up. I think this is the first time I picked up the guitar today. In fifths, sixes, sevens, and octaves. The way that you can kind of up this practicing is going to be a good thing for you. To spruce practice. And if you do it that way, do it coming back, do it backwards. And, oh, that's one of my favorite little arpeggios. It's major 7. I think this will keep you guys pretty occupied for the next week. Next week, we'll start on position 3. Will be the C shape of the CAGED system. And I do also believe that we will be getting to our next octave, which is really cool. About the major scale shape is like we'll be getting into. The pentatonic has 5 positions. Technically, the major scale has 5 as well, but because of these 3 note per string patterns, there's only like. That's why I like 3 note per string. It feels like I have to memorize less. The easiest solution to the problem. If you enjoyed this, make sure to take a look at our newsletter. We send out tips and tricks every week or so. Not to spam you guys too much, and you ever get sick of it, you can always unsubscribe and resubscribe, whatever you want to do. Link to that in the comments below. We're going to have a course coming out. The course will be breaking down the modes to get you guys started on that. The modes are something that you've really wanted to learn, but there's a billion different internet videos out there. They're also friggin' difficult to weed through and understand, because I think a lot of people take very poor approaches to teaching the modes. Start easy, add one thing, and you'll have the modes. It's not a difficult thing, it's just a conceptual thing. Anyway, a course coming out on that November. Keep on the lookout for that. I'm really pumped about that one. I'm super excited. I've taught a lot of people the modes, and seeing the light bulbs click off in their heads, oh my god, I get it now, is super gratifying for me. The backing track's coming out on the YouTube here shortly, and maybe reach out to you guys and have you guys do some as well, so you guys could show off your playing. Plus, it'd be really fun to see what the community does. It's always fun to hear you take on something and then hear somebody else's take on it. Everybody thinks differently, and that's the most beautiful thing ever, and I'm super pumped about that too. I think I have said everything I need to say. It's always a pleasure. I'm Ben with Intermediate Guitar. I will catch you next week. Toodles, y'all.